art galleries, cultural centers, radio stations. We had 80-some people in here back in July for Afro-Cuban performance of the Strayhorn music by Pepe Gonzalez and his group. We've done 6 events in the Kennedy Center Millennium Stage. And I'm really thankful for it because we also have video evidence online, so you can go look at it, you know. So there's a record. We've done 2 Smithsonian museums. The Museum of American Art downtown, in their Take 5 series. There's a young pianist named Samoa Pender Hughes who comes from New York, that we had only talked on the phone and never met each other. Somebody told me about him. And he came down and he performed there. Then he performed the next night. That's at the Take 5 series. And the next night he performed at the Kennedy Center. And his project was looking at the music that Strayhorn wrote in 1941 when there was an ASCAP strike. And all of the music that Mr. Ellington up to that point had was in the ASCAP under their control, so he couldn't perform it. And he challenged Mr. Strayhorn and his son Mercer to write a body of work within 5-6 days. And out of that body of work came A Train, Chelsea Bridge, and some other iconic tunes in the Strayhorn catalog of music. So the man was a genius. Clearly he was. I've learned a lot about him by working with the different artists, or people like Rusty Hassan, who's sitting here, who that we've known for eons. In fact, and we'll talk about that a little later. In learning about Mr. Strayhorn, his history, but even more importantly, from a musician's point of view, the difficulty of his music. We listen to it and we think it's wonderful, easy, etc. But when you listen to the musicians talk about it, they talk about it with its difficulty. They love it. They love the challenge. But it's really not easy music to work with. And you have to really get into it and dig into it. And so I'm grateful that they looked at it like Reginald St. J. looked at it from a Caribbean point of view, or Pepe Gonzalez from an Afro-Cuban point of view, or Janelle Gill, pianist, looking at songs that rarely were heard by the public, and so did Freddie Dunn, who will be here at some point as well, who both were challenged with the idea that there's music that people didn't know of Mr. Strayhorn's that they would share. We had Eric Bird as a pianist who was performing with Carl Groves a couple of weeks ago at the Anacostia Museum. And during the intermission, at the end of the intermission, we had a conversation between the artist and myself and the audience. That's going to happen today as well. And during that conversation, Eric talked about Strayhorn's music, and he kept using technical terms in terms of music, A flat, this, that. And if you didn't know the music or didn't know how the language of music, then you didn't know what he was talking about. So I challenged him. I asked him. I said, "Well, demonstrate what you mean by that." And so he showed how. Normally you would play a set of notes in this way. He says, well, Strayhorn would always layer it with something else on top. And he demonstrated that. So the audiences are beginning to learn about this music beyond listening to Chelsea Bridge, Lush Life that he wrote when he was a teenager. Ooh. That kind of mind, that kind of genius to write a song like that And he was just a teenager. He hadn't even, well, you thought he hadn't experienced life to that level. I mean, you listen to the lyrics, it's like a 16, 17, 18-year-old boy. Come on, man. So the world had a lot to get ready for with Mr. Strayhorn. Regretfully, he only lived to be 51. Can you imagine him? And he wrote more than 400 tunes. Wow. I found a list of 200 and some. Then his niece, Elise Clairбach, she's in Chicago, and she's president of the Strayhorn Foundation. She wrote me and said 400 plus. And there was a man named Walter Vandelier who did some research down at the Smithsonian and found those extra 200 or so. So, you're going to hear this evening the interpretation of Mr. Strayhorn's music. I have no clue as to what they're going to play. They didn't share that. What NASA did say was they're going to take it to the edge. Okay. Charles Vermont, who's sitting here, performed Strayhorn's music, taking it to the edge, up in Silver Spring at Vincino's a couple of weeks ago. You know, and all these artists just gravitated toward this man's music. And I've really been blessed to have developed these friendships, some of whom I was friends with before this ever happened. And clearly, I've got some new friends who move on down the road. This is the last of this series. It's not the last of what we're going to do with Mr. Strayhorn. I don't know what we're going to do. They're going to tell me what they want to do moving forward, considering what they've done in terms of working with his music. So before we begin, Melvin Deal, who's also participated in this series, he gave a conversation about gay people being performed in the performance world and the challenges. So back in April, was it? Melvin, I think, I'll look in the room other than my sister who's back in the back. I've known him longer than anybody else in this room. Maybe my cousin Butch. Melvin and I met when we were in high school. And I was an athlete running track. And Melvin, he's laughing about it. He was the manager of the track team. He wasn't thinking about being an athlete. Now, roles have switched. He's a dancer, and that's athletic. And he's been dancing all these years, more than 50 years. And he's the godfather of my youngest daughter as well. So clearly we have a family connection with brothers, in fact. He does a ritual called pouring libation, which we like to do at the beginning of special events. And indeed, this is a special event. So I'll turn it over to Malcolm.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's always an honor to be invited to do something good, especially pray, because many people will invite you to things, but they don't invite you to pray. Okay? You know, that's the last thing on their mind. Where's the liquor? Where's the food? Where are the people? And they don't invite you to say a prayer. While Vernard was speaking, I was thinking about the reality of the fact that genius does not discriminate in terms of who it possesses. This is why I tell young people that you must make yourself comfortable in the mud as the diamond that you are until you're discovered.
Right.
And they go, what? I said, yes, you must make yourself comfortable in the earth as a diamond in the mud until someone discovers you. And believe me, you will be discovered before you leave the earth. When it comes to musicians, from the African perspective, musicians are interpreters of spiritual voices that wish to give a message. When you hear the horns and the drums of an ensemble, they're not just making musical sounds, but they're speaking proverbs. When the king of Ashanti comes out, there's a whole orchestra of horn blowers, and they blow the horns, and people say, oh, that's real jazz. Listen, they're doing improvisation. Yes, but they are what? Speaking. They are speaking proverbs, a blessing on the king, and also messages that the spiritual people have received that they want the people to know. So it's not just a frivolous activity. You know, some people in the world relegate everything that people of color do as entertainment, exotic entertainment, and I call it spiritual entertainment, meaning that you are embracing what the Spirit has brought for you to understand. This is why when you have children who are musically inclined and they're playing a horn or a drum, and you're driving me mad. Why don't you stop that noise? They say, no, we're not making noise. If you listen carefully enough, you'll understand what I'm saying. So you cannot prejudice the way the universe sends messages. It does it in a very surreptitious way and wants to educate you about what it wants you to know. Sometimes you'll have a tune going through your head. You say, where did that come from? And didn't come from the TV. You've never heard it before, but it's your tune that the Creator and the Spirit of the universe has sent to you, and they say, hum this, and they will bring a harmonic that will get you another understanding. So what we see with musicians, and of course dance, is that it's a deep experience, a very spiritual experience, and the people that are selected to do it take it in a possession. Strayhorn was possessed by a spiritual force. Many of you here are possessed by a spiritual force, but you fight. You fight it. You say, no, they'll think I'm crazy. I don't care whether people think I'm crazy, because I've been crazy for years. And can go up to St. E's and get people to write certificates of validation that Melvin Deal is crazy. I said, yes, but divinely what? Divinely so.
Amen.
Divinely so. And reveling in that divinity. So I'm going to pour a libation. I'm going to ask someone to come and ring the bell to call the ancestors. Could I have a brave person to come up and ring the bell for the libation? Yes, okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. You know, we are so afraid of each other. We are. We should not be afraid of each other, because we should travel in what? In love. That protects us from demons, from evil people. People say, how do you get rid of evil? I said, love. I love them. I love them. And I asked you to come up in love. What's your name?
Sheila.
Sister Sheila. Give her a hand, please. Sister Sheila, I want you to ring the bell, because the bell calls in the Holy Spirit. And we're going to pour a little libation out. Libation is African way of praying, giving something back to Mother Earth and the universe. And African people do nothing without praying first. Always. A libation and a prayer to thank God for the moment. So we're going to use water. Sometimes they use gin, but I can't do gin. I'm old for gin. Hello. Water will do. Okay. When I say ago, which in Twi means are you listening, you will say I may. Okay? All right. The bell is here, and let me put some water in the cup.
Yes, yes, thank you.
Ago. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. In the name of all the ancestors of the Middle Passage. In the name of all our ancestors who have suffered and died for our cause of freedom. We ask you to come this evening and join us in the celebration of our brother Strayhorn. We thank you for his life. We thank you for his genius. We thank you for his discipline in listening to God and ancestors to create his music. We thank you for all the spirits who have come here this evening to witness that and to bear testimony to his genius. We thank you, God and ancestors, for blessing us with health and strength in order that we might be here tonight. And we ask that you bless all those who are responsible for this activity taking place. Bless each and every home that each of us has come from. Guide us to and from safely from this place. Protect us from harm and the evils of the world. Bless our children in a special way. And bless our ancestors in a special way, as well as our elders. We ask that you bring a warm feeling of love and togetherness here this evening. These and all good things we ask in the name of all that is good in the universe, that all say amen. Amen. And we take a sip. Anyone else would like to come and take a sip? You may do so. Don't be afraid. It's not poison. Anyone? Anyone else? Kelly was I wanted this Anyone else? Okay. All right, and we will, the house man, would you take this to your front door after you take a sip and pour it at the door for the spirits coming in? Okay, thank you very much. Give her a hand, please. And can we give God a hand? Give God a hand. Sure. Always. Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Very good. I want to first thank you all for taking time out of your day to come here to spend with us as we acknowledge the 100th anniversary of the great composer, Billy Strayhorn. And, I mean, when you think about it, 100 years, maybe someone in here is close to 100 years old. I know I am. At least I feel like it sometimes. And I'm sure you may too. But Billy H. Strayhorn was a very important figure as in terms of this music. And I'm always reminded that those of us who have a large body of work to get out, and that it's seemingly easy for them to get it out. It just flows from them. They channel the work. It seems as though those individuals do not stay with us as long as many others. And that tells us, it should, that we must take care with ourselves. Not only our health. Health can mean many other things besides physical health. But as was so wonderfully rendered to you by Melvin Deal, that there is a higher power that goes on when we're dealing with this music. And many of us are channelers. We receive music. I don't know about my other cohorts here. However, it probably does apply to them. When I wake up in the morning, I hear music in my head. Sometimes it may be a song that I already know, that's already been composed. Many times, and most times, it is a song that is new to me. And because the establishment, as Melvin said, has us so caught up in the act of survival, having to be in rush hour traffic, having to get the kids to the bus stop or to school, having to get breakfast made for the family, having to get to work, having to come home and dealing with what needs to be dealt with for survival, that music gets away from us. And it's important for you all to know, those of us here who have spouses and those of us who do not, what is necessary in our spouses is that they must understand that we are another kind of people, those of us who are artists. And so it needs to be understood that what Melvin said, yeah, he's crazy, we're all crazy. You know, and the easiest way for me to say to you how important it is for us to delve into our art is that when we don't practice one day, we know it. We don't practice 2 days, our wife knows it. When we don't practice 3 days, the world knows it. So we have to engage in our music. And many times when we wake up in the morning, we may lose that song. If you ever see us humming into a recorder, it's because we don't want to forget the song. If you ever see us go to the piano before we get up to brush our teeth, it's because we have to get it under our fingers so that we don't forget it. And we make little markings on sheets that they call manuscript paper to represent what we have so that we won't forget it. So I want to say that in the idea of Billy Strayhorn, because he and Duke Ellington, they had the privilege, the honor, and the wherewithal to engage in their artistry every single day. When Duke showed up to a hotel, he had to have a piano and coffee every morning. And he was there at the piano composing. And all of us, Alan Johnson, you can't get him off the piano. When Antonio Parker walks into a room, he doesn't even pick up his saxophone. If there's a piano, he goes for it. Same thing with Julian. He goes for the piano. Thad Wilson, they go for the piano. James King, go for the... We fight to get to the piano because that is the mother instrument so that we can develop our music. And so being that Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn were pianists, it doesn't take rocket science to understand that they really needed to be in an environment where they could produce their art. And so we're going to just take you to the tip of what we feel for Billy Strayhorn, because his repertoire was so broad and so vast that we could not even touch it here one day. We're going to play a few songs for you, and we're going to play them our way. You've heard them a lot of different ways. I think I might be right in saying I'm the oldest musician here on stage, but these musicians here are like me. James said, yeah, you are. And so that's why I have the microphone. So, but these musicians are edgy musicians. They like playing on the edge. That's why they're here with me, because the edge is where I belong, and they belong with me. So we're going to start out first with a song. We're going to digress from Billy Strayhorn, and we're going to pay honor and respect like we like to do when the libation is poured. We like to honor those that came before us and who are now ancestors. And so the person who actually mentored most of us on stage, besides Thad, because I think when Thad got to DC, Calvin Jones was not here, I'm not sure. But 1 year, okay, Calvin Jones was a mentor to all of us. He taught us. And so we're going to play one of his songs entitled Beltway. Hope you like it. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, you know, I like to use horses, like herd of horses, as an example of what I think about us playing this music. And we just like to run. And we just, you know, the horses are such beautiful animals. They're majestic. And they have a lot of poise. And they have a lot of, you know, what can I say? They have, when you look at them, you know, they stand like they belong. And when you got a bunch of them running around together, and that's what this represents. So now we've run through the canyons and the valleys, and so now we're going to get on with the program, and we're going to pay homage to Billy Strayhorn, and our first song will be Lush Life. And we're going to do it a little different, and Lush Life, Billy Strayhorn wrote this song when he was a teenager. If I'm not mistaken, he wrote the lyrics as well. So, for a teenager to be thinking on the level of what the lyrics say is monumental for a teenager. I don't know what was on his mind, but I do know that he demonstrated his genius and what was later to come. And Duke Ellington saw his genius. And when Duke Ellington saw his genius, he put him on payroll. He said, just write. He didn't even travel with the band at first. He just wrote. And over the years, they developed an alter ego kind of relationship in which you really could not tell the difference between Duke's writing and Billy Strayhorn's writing. They had amalgamated themselves in such a way to each other that they became one. But I will say one thing about Billy Strayhorn's music. Though Duke Ellington had a lot to do with advancing harmonies, chordal harmonies, as well as sounds that you would hear coming out of the orchestra, Billy Strayhorn sort of superimposed what he knew about harmony on top of that. And he brought Duke Ellington's music up to the up to the sound of the times. And so Lush Life, we've got a few vocalists in here, and they will tell you that Lush Life is a very difficult song to sing. So I want you to pay attention to the intervals. We're going to have a little music lesson here. Pay attention to the intervals. The interval is the distance between two notes, like a second to the fourth, or the first to the fourth, or fifth, seventh. Listen to how it moves. The melody moves intervallically. And then imagine yourself a vocalist trying to move like that from the root to the seventh, 7 steps away from the root, and hit it, knowing that you're there. Hit it. So it's very difficult for vocalists. I want you to know that when you hear a vocalist singing Billy Strayhorn's music, just know that he or she have done their homework, and if they haven't done their homework, it's time to pull out the hook. Get them off stage, call Sandman, because they should not have messed with Billy Strayhorn's music. However, it is just as difficult for those of us who play melodic instruments. And you will witness that when you hear these other young men. I don't have as many melodic parts as they. I have 4 voices. If you add the cymbals, there's 4 more voices. I have 8 voices. Well, they have an array of voices within a 12-tone structure that they can move harmonically and move from one octave to another, octave being 8 notes away. So if you got a C, then 8 notes up, you got a higher C. But in between that, there are 12 notes. And so, including the white notes and the black notes. That's the best way to put it. So now that you've got that little bit of information, listen please to how these young men approach the melodic structure and harmonic structure of this very trying piece, Lush Life. What I tell you? It's the first time that we played this outside of rehearsal. And, these young men, well, first of all, let me acknowledge the fact that that chart was put together by Alan Johnson. An enormously talented pianist himself. And I take this moment to say that I discovered his genius when he was 19 years old, which was years ago.
Long time.
Believe it or not, Alan, prior to deciding to go into music professionally, was a student at GW, George Washington, correct? As a pre-med student. So he decided rather than to heal with the drugs, the scalpel, he decided to heal with music.
Amen.
Amen. Doctor. We're going to continue with a song that, of course, another song of Billy Strayhorn, UMMG, which stands for Upper Manhattan Medical Group. And he had a great relationship with the staff there because they knew him. And he was in the hospital, we spent time in the hospital, and this is his experience with pen to paper of some of those experiences. Upper Manhattan Medical Group, or UMMG. sounding like on a 9-foot baby grand. 9-foot grand, not a baby. Or even a 9-foot shad. I heard, and I don't watch Empire, but I heard there's pianos on there. So let's give it up for Shad. Also, I don't know who else's birthday it is of you in here, but one person I know for birthday we just celebrated, and that's Rusty Hassan. Another person told me that you may be aware of, Billy Hart, his birthday is today. 75 years old. You needed the break of this. So we're taking a break now. So at the end of the break, which means before the second set, we're going to begin a question and answer. And we hope that we can answer that question. We also have questions too.